Hi everyone, my name is Adriana Carrig. I am the founder and CEO of Little Words Project, and welcome to our series Words Matter, the show where we interview key members of our community while doing our favorite activity, beating bracelets. Today we are joined by Hannah Bauer, aka Hannah Hall. Hannah has dedicated her platform of over 750,000 followers to sharing her fitness journey, all while navigating the ups and downs of marriage, postpartum, motherhood, and everything in between. Hannah was a gymnast at the University of Nebraska, but after a career-ending injury in 2010, her relationship with exercise and food took a turn for the worse. Through her journey with disordered eating and excessive exercise, Hannah learned that these were merely symptoms of a lack of self-love and insecurity. Once she realized that these were problems she'd have to tackle head-on, everything changed. She turned to social media to share her journey and began posting her workouts, along with unfiltered content to keep it real. Bloated or unbloated, flexing or not flexing, Hannah strives to maintain a platform where she can help her followers feel good about themselves and their own journeys. Her core belief is that exercise, health, and wellness should be both enjoyable and empowering, rather than a punishment we feel we have to put ourselves through. Hannah has also used her platform to speak about motherhood and her journey navigating postpartum and how that experience has affected her health, wellness, and fitness journey. She is a mom of two and now runs 22 Nutrition, a nutritional supplement company with her husband, Josh. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. I was briefly saying earlier, I feel like this has been like a 3-year courting situation.
Yes.
I've been stalking you from afar. I've just been loving you since the moment I saw you stacked in Little Words and being so vulnerable and talking about your personal experience on your social media. Like, I've just been so drawn to you.
You're gonna make
since.
Me like beat red.
I know.
Quick gas me up.
I'm a big gasser. I'm not gonna lie. Not you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But I just believe in like filling other women's tanks because there's so much noise out there of people trying to like deplete your tank, right? Whether it be other people, whether it be your own family. Unfortunately, I know you have 2 boys just like I do, and boy, are they tank emptiers.
They suck the life
but
out of me
also
sometimes.
But also tank fillers, I will say, because they also bring it right back.
They just put life in perspective.
One cuddle session and you're like full again.
Or it's like 180. You can be so mad at them 1 minute and they just look at you and be like, "I'm sorry, mommy," and then you're like, "It's fine, everything's fine." Like,
yeah, exactly. And you're like, okay.
Forget
the
that
second
I was
they
even
say
mad.
I'm sorry, you're like, oh, okay,
I know.
you're so polite. That's literally my son Ford this morning. He was a complete nightmare. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so Hannah, you were a college athlete who experienced a devastating injury. Walk us through your journey from that point to now. It doesn't have to be very in-depth because I know that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But how did that experience affect your relationship with food and exercise, and talk us through that?
Yeah, so after I dislocated both elbows and had reconstructive surgery, I went through not just a loss of like my athletics, but an identity crisis. So everything that I was struggling with to be the athlete I was and all the sacrifices I was making increased tenfold. So the eating disorders, the binge eating, the need to try to work out even though I couldn't because I was injured made me feel trapped. So I resorted to emotional eating. And because of that, I started gaining weight. I started like all the things that are drilled into as a gymnast, were compounding. And that just made me feel awful about myself, looking at myself in the mirror, not being able to exercise and release, and feeling broken. Really started to make me feel like I wasn't worth anything. Like I didn't understand what my purpose was anymore. When you're an athlete your entire life and all of a sudden it's gone, you don't know what to do with yourself. So I was in the pits of self-loathing. So I resorted to punishment in every single form to try to like mask the feeling. Like I deserved that feeling because I wasn't doing any good for myself or into the world. And I would live that world for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, trying to figure out like how to get back to what I once was. I was constantly living in the past, trying to change the past of like, this was who I was in the past, so I have to find that person again. And by chasing the past, I was missing the present and the opportunities that were in front of me. They were never good enough. Nothing was ever satisfying because all I wanted was the person I used to be. And that was really...
And she was impossible to achieve because you had an injury. And I mean,
I wasn't that person
you
anymore.
dislocated both elbows. Like,
Yeah. They took tendons from my knee. and they went in my elbows, and they pretty much reconstructed them. So, it was the most humbling, like I had a caretaker because my arms were stuck in casts at 90 degrees. So I wasn't able to feed myself. I wasn't able to wash
90
myself.
90 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wasn't able to change my clothes. It was in the dead of winter of Nebraska, and I couldn't put a coat on because I'm stuck like
And how old are you?
I was 20.
You're literally a kid.
Yeah.
And you're in college at the peak of your career.
Trying to, yeah. I had to really fight for it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was a very humbling experience.
Yeah. And you had to quit the team. Like that was it. From there, literally career ending.
Pretty much. Yeah. They told me, like, in my mind when it happened, I was like, it's fine. I'll get back to it. Because my senior year of high school, I broke both ankles. At the same time too. There's something with twos, which goes into my business. But I was like, I'll get back. I'll fight back. I'll be okay. Like, I always come back. And the doctor was like, don't. If you continue on this path, like, do you want to hold your kids someday? Do you want to be able to actually have function of your arms, without them hurting?
And do you have total function, or
they're totally fine now. Of
where...
course, like they ache, and like especially when I sleep or if they've been a really long time, and then I go to straighten them, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But they're, for the most part, everything that doctors told me I wouldn't be able to do, I can do now just fine.
Good for you. I think that's probably the athlete mentality too. I mean, I had a cousin who was a state champion gymnast who I witnessed what goes into becoming a gymnast at that level. Like, it is no joke.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of sacrifices.
You are an athlete. You're an athlete from a very young age. When did you start?
I started when I was 8.
Yeah.
And even my first 3 years of gymnastics were really intense because I was on a trajectory for the elite path. So I was at 8, 9 years old. There was some summers I was working 30 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that must do something to that does something to your psyche. You know what I mean?
When
you are competing at that level at such a young age, it defines you in a way.
It does.
What was the turning point for you? And what got you to the place that you are now? And I know it's never ending journey, but what got you
honestly,
here?
I got in a car accident.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I was in college, and we were up in the mountains, and I was driving, and this is going to be a lesson to be learned, but I was texting and driving. Honestly, the guy that I was head over heels with was in the back of my car letting another girl all over him, and I was DDing for everybody. So I was really hurt and frustrated and just sucked in the whole who is this girl? Am I being played? All of these things of the insecurities coming out. So I was texting his friend listen, what's going on? And as I was texting, we were up in the mountains. There was no guardrails. We flew off a cliff. My car rolled 4 times.
Oh!
And we should all be dead. Yeah, I didn't have a seatbelt on.
Oh!
They were in the back of the car. They were drinking. We're
Literally.
college. It was a huge celebration for the academy's ring party. So it was a huge deal.
So what happened?
Yeah, so we were dumb.
Yeah, to say the least. But beyond that,
Yeah. So everyone luckily was fine.
Okay.
I ended up looking back, I was concussed, but I didn't realize I was panicking, oh my god, I just almost killed the 4 people in the back of my car. I remember kind of puking on the side, climbing out the window, puking, being oh my god. And that really just was a huge wake up call, because before that I was still my head was in the sand. I was almost having this self-pity party about myself of I'm not good enough. Who am I?
Who am I without
this? Who am I without sports? And who am I without being able to do gymnastics? And so after the car accident, I was look, I almost lost my life. I should be dead.
Right.
And it was just the wake up call I needed to crawl myself out and just have a little more perspective, that. Eagle eye in, you get to see from outside the perspective of your life. And I'm I don't want to live this way anymore.
No. So when did Josh come into the picture, your husband?
He was I met Josh when I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he a little bit of a turning point for you in a way?
Yeah, actually. Because I have a huge history of trauma with men. Mm-hmm. And when he walked into my life, it just flipped it on its side.
Finally someone to respect you and value you. And value is more than a gymnast or an athlete. And someone who, did he know you when you were in that phase of life?
No,
wow.
but it was such a small world. We have connections of how we kind of fell into meeting each other, but
And it just, he came into your life and things changed.
Oh, yeah. He flipped me upside down. And,
And then I know that you got married. It was kind of like a whirlwind romance, right?
the moment we met each other, it was like,
over.
we had our first date was 72 hours, and he had a drawer after it. And
Yeah.
we were together ever since. And we
that.
both knew right away. I felt safe. That was like one of my biggest keys. I knew that he was the one, and moved in a year later together, dated 3.5 years, then engaged, and then married, and then a kid right away.
You had a kid right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But no, at what age were you? I'm like, God bless you. What age were you when you did have your baby?
So
your first
I had
baby?
Jaden when I was 28.
Okay. So I asked you that because, like, I had my first when I was 31, and I mean, not for lack of trying. I wanted my first earlier, but we went through an IVF journey to get pregnant, so a little bit of a different experience. But I, definitely can recognize just how much your life flips upside down when you have a kid. So
it's another identity crisis.
Exactly. And you're having a total of like 6 years after, or 7 years after, like, the crazy period of trauma in your life. Like, I can only imagine you're still kind of navigating through the difficulty of, like, who am I going to become? You had just met your husband.
Yeah,
you just married your husband.
Yeah. So when I had a lot of trauma, even when I met Josh, I was still working through that. I didn't realize I had. So there was all these layers kind of being peeled back throughout my life, and then it's like.
And what were you doing to peel that back? Was it therapy?
I went to therapy.
Okay.
So there's a lot of sexual trauma in my past, and so when I was like getting really serious with Josh, there was some things in me that I was like, I love this man so much, but there's some like.
Why do I have this block?
Why do I have this block? And so it was a wake up call for me. Like, I still got some self-love and work to do.
Yeah.
So I went back to therapy to try to heal some of that. And before I had Jaden, I was still in therapy. I didn't feel like I was worthy of being a mom, because I was like, I can't even function on my own. I don't even love myself right now. Wow. How can I be a good mom to love my child? So there was that huge journey before I had Jaden at 28. Right. And that was really healing in a lot of facets. And I thought I did all of the work. I thought I found self-love, especially when I became a mom. Like, the light bulb just went on. It was actually a really positive experience for me when I first had Jaden.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so did you have that postpartum depression and anxiety with Jaden? It was with Saya. Okay. Yeah. So Jaden was kind of this, like, catalyst of growth for you.
So much growth. And it was in a very good, like, energy, like, feminine, like, just felt purposeful. And I, like, had a new perspective on life.
Yeah. And what are you doing at this time? You at what point do you launch 22 Nutrition?
Like at the end of that pregnancy, right?
End of Jaden, or
end of Jaden. So before Jaden.
So you're a new business owner. You have this thing that you're defining yourself by beyond the previous, like, athleticism. Now it's like, I'm a business owner. Where was your, like, social media following at the time?
It was growing really well. Like, everything was just falling into place, and I just felt like I had purpose, and I was making an impact, and with the workouts and education and just sharing my life authentically and having a business that I felt really passionate about. And then we were so excited to start for our second. I couldn't wait because I loved being pregnant. I loved, like, the journey. I remember looking at Jaden at like 4 weeks old, and I'm like, don't grow up. Yeah. I love this stage, like I of course there was hard moments in it. Like anyone having a child, it flips you upside down.
Totally.
But I loved the journey.
Yeah. It's almost like it was what you needed. And so I can imagine that when Saya came along and you started experiencing these feelings of postpartum depression and anxiety and self-doubt and all of that, it must have been, like, so jarring for you because that was not your experience.
So when I had Saya, it completely shifted my worlds. I expected a similar but yet different journey, like my first. Yeah. And it was polar opposites.
Yeah. How did it manifest for you? Like, if you don't mind sharing.
I had a little bit of a traumatic birth.
Okay.
But it was more so, babies sleep. Like, all they do is sleep those first, like, 3 weeks. Yeah. But Saya, like, starting on day 5, was already, like, needing to be put down like a 12-week-old. Like, he was starting to cry all day long, starting to get fussy. Nothing was consoling him. Wouldn't breastfeed. He couldn't handle I have an oversupply. So a lot of times he couldn't handle the flow of it. So things just started piling up pretty quickly.
Wow.
And he was up like every hour.
Yeah.
And so when you have lack of sleep, the lack of sleep was a catalyst.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be pretty raw here. My postpartum started really early on, and it was the person that came out during that period I couldn't recognize. Like I had severe postpartum rage, and I had debilitating intrusive thoughts. But to the point where I couldn't relate, because everything on the internet was like an intrusive thought of like me accidentally falling down the stairs and hurting my baby, or like all these accidents of hurting, you know, the child. And mine were intentional. Like I wanted to hurt my child. And then as soon as that wave of rage would settle, then you have that guilt and shame and that like, oh my God, like I don't deserve to be a mom. So I felt so alone. I wished the time away because I could not. Asaya was up every hour. He was screaming all day, every day. I was trying to run 2 businesses. We were trying to run 22. I was trying to do my app. I was trying to be present on social media and just manage it all. And there was part of me that dove into that to try to ignore.
We're just gonna keep this
try
here.
to ignore like everything going on. I'm like, it's fine. It's just the baby blues. It's just, you know, all these things, until I realized what I was feeling wasn't normal.
Yeah,
like
so
the
what
reaction.
did you do? Like, how did you get
So
through it?
I remember I first told Josh what I was like struggling with. Like I'm not okay. Like I need your help. And he took it like the champ he is always, and just picked me off my knees and carried me for basically 3 years. But I realized that I needed help. I didn't want to go on antidepressants, and this is not to say please, like if your doctor puts you on them, go take them. There is a time and place for them. But based on my history,
myself.
Based on my history, I was on antidepressants. Right. They did not help. Yeah. I went through so many different modalities of therapy, and they all had a place in healing, but they're all different. And I think one of the biggest things was communicating to my partner what I was going through, what I was thinking, even though it was really hard, so that he could get a perspective of, oh man, this is how I can help. This is how I can support her. My biggest thing is finding someone you can communicate with, whether it be your husband, whether it be a best friend, whether it be a doctor, whether it be, there's so many, like Postpartum International has therapists. A lot of times it's affordable. It's seeking help, and it's being okay with seeking help. You're not broken. You're not inferior. You're not a bad mom. There's such a taboo with therapy and getting help that it's really sad, because it keeps moms from seeking help, because they're like, I have to do to do it all. I'm okay. I have to be strong, you know, like financially they're the last person that probably gets help, because they have all the other people they need to support. And it's in today's current world, finances are really, really tight. So like mom's mental health is probably on the back burner when it should be the forefront, because she's a lot of times the glue to the whole home.
You have pitted and pinned insecurity, self-doubt as the main reasons for everything that you went through that's negative, right? Like it's the insecurity of it all. How do you feel like you've come full circle there? Like are you at the tippy top of self-love? Like where are you on your scale?
I think I've come full circle in the sense of the self-love I needed at that time. I feel like I mastered that. But life is always changing and evolving in different seasons. Yeah. And so we are always being challenged with a different level of self-love depending on the season. So I think self-love is always evolving and always changing, and it's something you always have to work on depending on the season. So in a sense, do I self-love myself and my child during that when I grew? Like 5 years ago, I'd mastered it. Yeah. But now I have a new season of self-love from being a motherhood and figuring out who I am outside of social media and outside of like the work I do and outside of being a mom and outside of all these things. So I think there is no perfecting self-love. It is a constant effort to love who you are and what you're doing in your life and where you're at. Yeah. Some seasons are going to be, you feel on top of the world and you feel confident and you feel great. And there's going to be some seasons where you feel like you are drowning. Yeah. And I think, but no one deserves to go through drowning seasons, but I do think the drowning seasons give you a massive perspective on growth, on who you are, on appreciativeness, and just overall outlooks.
The drowning seasons give you perspective on the swimming seasons. Yeah. Right? When you're able to get your head above water, you feel and you appreciate it so much more. So one of the last pieces of this, you are such a health and wellness fitness person at the end of the day. Like that is your primary core, message, right? Is that exercise and health and wellness should be empowering and feel good for you. And even you noticed that when it wasn't feeling good to you, you had to stop something so that it got back to feeling good. So for so many, it can feel like a burden. I'm one of those people. I'm so tired. I'd rather sleep than get up and work out. But I know that getting up and working out will set me on a path for success the rest of that day as far as my mental health is concerned. What do you say to women like me who are like, I want to get better, but I just don't, I'm too lazy, or I just don't want to, it's a burden. Like, how do you make it not?
So there's a lot of different like pins in this. So first, I'm going to go with the hard love first. Your expectations of yourself have to meet the work. You cannot have expectations of yourself of changing what you look like or having all these goals if you're not putting in the work.
Right.
And that can be a really hard pill to swallow because as soon as you see someone that achieved what you want, you're going to start giving excuses of why they're able to do it and you can't. You go into that comparison journey. Yep. So you have to have some hard love with yourself in a very non-judgmental way of what are your realistic setbacks? What are emotions?
Stop making excuses in a nice way.
Everyone has excuses.
In a nice way.
I don't even want to say make excuses. Okay. Everyone has, I hate that, no excuses thing, especially as a mom when you are burdened with
all the
so much going on. I want to say, what are your logical hurdles that keep you from going? Yours was tiredness. Mm-hmm. So then I would ask you, okay, are you tired or are you exhausted? Mm-hmm. Which one are you? Mm-hmm. And then you have to be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, am I tired or am I exhausted? If you're exhausted, there is so much validity in rest. Your body needs rest. Yeah. Especially for your mental health. Wellness is not just what you look like. It's your emotional health. It's your spiritual health. It's your emotional health. It's all of it. Mm-hmm. If you're just tired, then I would tell you, you need to go work out. But you need to do it. If you're struggling with consistency, it needs to be something you enjoy. It doesn't matter if it burns the most calories. Who gives a shit? Mm-hmm. Go move. If you like hiking, you like dancing, you like whatever it is, do something you like. Just move. Get those endorphins going and just do that for a time. Yeah. Once you get that consistency of getting over the hurdle of the way I'm feeling now versus the way I want to feel. Okay, I am going to have discipline because the way I want to feel trumps the way I feel right now. I'm going to shut off my brain. I'm going to give myself 5-10 minutes of pity of being I don't want to work out, but I'm going to make myself do it because I know the feeling afterwards is going to trump the way I'm feeling now. You have to put your emotions aside, and that can be really hard. Yeah. It can be really hard, but it's a journey in establishing discipline because every single time you put your emotions aside for the way your future self wants to feel, you're building a block. You're building that discipline, and motivation is fickle. It's never going to be around. It comes up times and then it plummets, and it comes up and it plummets. In order to have a consistent lifestyle, that discipline of being my future self needs this, so I'm going to have the discipline to serve that person. Wow. So you have to fight for yourself. And fighting for yourself can be really hard. It can be really hard. But if you fight for yourself in that moment and know that your future self deserves that, then it's a lot easier to get yourself to go move.
Okay. Last few questions. What little words do you wear that help you each day? What's your non-negotiable you always have on?
So for me, it kind of shifts, but always it's something to do with strength, worth, mama, or my name, because it's your identity. Focusing on your strength.
Love that.
It's kind of the bracelets I have all the time.
Yeah. So, and then as far as you are one of our kindfluencers, which is so perfect and fitting for you. You are literally the kindest fluencer I've probably ever met. When you thought of the words you wanted to launch for this collection, what was your reasoning for launching them? And what are they? And what was your reasoning for launching them?
So I got the Little Words project when I was pregnant and earlier postpartum. And when I started to steeply decline fast and who I was, my worth, how I viewed myself, these little words impacted me more than I realized because I would be struggling and I'd be holding Saya and then I would look at strength and I'd be like, you know what? No, I am strong. I can do this, and their worth, my worth. So they were constant little tiny reminders that that I could do it, that I could survive, that this is who I am, and I needed to remind myself that, because it's so easy to lose who you are when you are drowning.
Yeah.
So when you finally reached out and you finally agreed to this, I was like, this is perfect, because literally, like, for 3 years, these have not left my wrist.
Yeah.
Even when I would go to weddings or, like, the fanciest things.
Yeah. And I always saw that, and I was like,
they never left my wrist. Like, they
Yeah.
just stayed on.
Yeah.
And they became, like, my second skin. So this collaboration is meaningful to me and impactful because it resonates so deeply with me and something I truly, like, believe in and encourage. So the words that I chose, I feel like there were so many, but I'm strong, that were constant, just like pillars in my journey, that like I was worthy of being mom. Like, I am strong. I can fight through this. I am strong to handle my child that is struggling. I'm strong to do all of these things.
Yeah.
That constant reminder.
That's beautiful.
So
oh my gosh. I'm so excited
3.
about these bracelets. They're going to be so good.
I think so many can relate to that. Whether you're a mom or not, mental health is a huge thing in America, and there are so many people with and you know what, looking at it too, I live a very, very, very privileged life, and I still struggled. So I can only imagine the struggling that so many are going through, especially mothers that are single mothers that had the mental health that I had, that are doing it all by themselves, working full time. They are having colic babies.
Think about them.
Yeah.
I can't even think about that.
They're my heroes, because like it's
same.
Yeah.
It
doesn't negate my hardship, but
No.
it does put in perspective. And I think perspective is a really good thing, especially when you live a privileged life that a lot of people can really just ignore when
Totally.
they, you know.
No, I think perspective was such a theme for this conversation, because it's really what it's all about. If you could go back and give your younger self a word, what would that word be and why?
So I would do more than. So I am more than.
Which is what you're making right now.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So more than a gymnast. I am more than the way people perceive me. I am more than performance. I am more than what I can give to people. I am, in a sense of, I am who I am, and that's enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to do more. I don't need to have a perfect clean house. I don't have to always cook. All these things to be enough. And I think so many of us are burdened with, I'm not a good mom if I don't do A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah.
And you have these expectations of yourself. Just taking care of your littles is enough.
Just getting up every day and putting one foot forward
is enough.
And I think that's the most insightful thing that you could ever say, because it's a debilitatingly slow process of feeling like life is 10 steps back, 5 steps forward, 10 steps back, 5 steps forward, but you do eventually get forward at the end of all of that. And you got to
stop comparing yourself to the people that are doing 20 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
Because they're in a different season of life, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to reach a season of life where you are just flourishing and you can do that. Everyone is having those ups and downs in different seasons of life.
It's peaks and valleys, 100%. Well, Hannah, this was such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad I stalked the shit out of you. No, I'm so glad that we made this happen.
It did.
And tell everybody.
Long overdue.
Yes, beyond. I can't wait to make you give me your phone number, and I'm just gonna be in your phone. We're just gonna be besties. Tell everyone where they can find you, and quickly drop about 22 nutrition, because that's not something we got to really talk
So
on.
I have my Instagram, Hannah Bar 2 Fit. All the other socials, you can just find me at Hannah Bar 2. And then 22 Nutrition is me and my husband's company. We started that 5 years ago because I never partnered with a supplement company because none of them hit my values. It's really, really hard to find a company that's both performance and a bit more naturally based.
Yeah.
And the ones that are more naturally based either taste like utter
dog poop,
or they don't work. They don't do anything for you.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bridge the gap on performance and have also things that you can take during pregnancy and postpartum and know the ingredients in them and know it's safe and there's no heavy metals and mold and all the things. You can trust what it is. We go out of our way to do certifications. We have GMP factory. We have third-party testing, and then we have informed sports. Where they go and do additional testing, so it's not you're not going to test negatively on a drug test. So if you're an athlete,
that's amazing.
you know that they're safe, and
that's amazing. Wow.
We care. We actually care.
We
And
actually,
take our
care. You don't
products.
say. You have something that you care about. You don't say.
And we're
You're the
always
most
growing and
caring
changing.
person
Yeah, we're
ever.
small. We're a small company. We have such a loyal customer base that we're so thankful of. But it really is just word of mouth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the best
that,
way.
that our products thrive on, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
There are the words. You heard them here first.
Yeah.
All right, Hannah. Thank you so much.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks for having me. That was so fun.
Yay.